Diego Cordovez.
Adam Schoenfeld.
Welcome to The Scoop, brought by Full Tilt Poker. Lex Veldhuis has been out with us for 2 weeks.
By treaty, Dutch-American treaty, all Dutchmen get 3 episodes.
If they're thoughtful and analytical and they've played interesting hands, that's true. Otherwise, not necessarily. We're going to talk about high-stakes poker and get a lot of background. If you missed parts 1 and 2, or 1 or 2, they're on Card Player TV. The one thing that's interesting about high-stakes poker, which you mentioned, is the fact that, again, based on the hands that they showed and the hands that you were featured in, your image is this very loose, maniacal 3-better has been reinforced because even if you were only doing it 3 or 4% of the time, the memorable hands are...
And 3 barrels as well.
Yeah. The hand against Andrew Roble, series of other re-raises, and the hand against Phil Ivey where you put in a 3-bet and now he came back over the top.
That is just sick.
What was going on in that hand?
I don't know. He had...
For people, I'm sorry, just for people who haven't watched the show.
Yeah.
You re-raised.
Yeah, we're playing 400, 800, 1600, and Greenstein makes it 5800 or something along those lines, and Ivy makes it 18,000 from the button, and I make it 51,600.
You're the third guy in with a raise.
So with King Jack of Hearts, and Barry folds, and Ivy asked me how much are you playing more, and I think I replied a little too fidgety. That's what I mean, believe me, I watched it a lot, that clip, and and then he announced all in after 7 seconds. I don't know. I destroyed me there. It
only took him 7 seconds after you gave him a count.
And the thing is,
Phil's hand was something like 9 high.
5 deuce.
5 deuce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not even.
5 deuce off. Yeah.
Essentially
no
the same, but he was confident about it.
The thing that kind of shocked me about that is that he had 3-bet Greenstein 5 times that day, I think.
Right.
And I made a point of to not look at it once, to not go and then fold. You know how sometimes people do when they think, and then they throw the hand away like that, like where I could give him a sense that I might want to take that spot on later.
Right.
I just went raise, and I just looked at my hand and threw it away like that. So I made a point not to do that because I knew I was going to 4-bet that once, and then it comes
like you're
up.
Thinking it's like, okay, he didn't do it this time, but next time he's going to do it no matter what he gets.
Exactly.
You know?
So I wanted to avoid that, and then I look and I was like, oh, it's a pretty good spot, and I have some blockers, whatever. So 51k, I might have made it a little too big because I might like just 4-bet smaller.
But not against 2 guys necessarily. I mean,
it's alright because like really, if Ivy makes it 18,000 and I make it 40. Is he really going to put me on a bluff? Because I expect most people to call there, so then I can rep a stronger range and everything. I like to 4-bet really small, so I think it was a little too big maybe, seeing my stack.
But you didn't ask him afterwards.
He's not going to tell me anyway, because
no,
he doesn't do that stuff. Because he keeps it to himself, so there's no point in asking. I mean, I would die to know. But on the other hand, the other people I asked are, well, if he's the only one that does see it. Because a lot of people that I sent it to didn't see anything, and like Daniel said, only that maybe I was counting it a little too fast or something like that. Like I wanted it to be over with.
Right.
But on the other hand, it's like I don't see anything that would make me want to shove a 5 deuce against you. And he's like, don't sweat it because if Ivy's the only one that sees, I mean he's Ivy, you know. So I mean he'll see it and he'll act accordingly. And
I mean, who knows what Phil Ivey sees that we don't see? Like he might actually have one of those, Terminator cameras in his head that sees everything.
It's just a feeling. I think it's just kind of like a blink feeling where as soon as I do it, he must think like what, and then act on that. And he doesn't even care about all his thought process later. It's his first instinct that might make him do stuff, and that's why he's so good. So you shouldn't be surprised that he can do stuff like that.
One of the many things that I thought was impressive just in the way you handle yourself in these situations was you just threw it away immediately, like no Hollywood, like no like acting as if you had a decision. He moved in on you, you just chucked it.
I think it's also horrible to do things without a plan. If I 4-bet there, I know what I'm going to do when somebody shoves. Like that hand against Greenstein was really surprising to me because I raised in a certain hand. I raised with Ace Queen, and Greenstein re-raised me, and I went all in, and he had Ace Queen as well, and he thought about it for a while and then folded, and that amazes me because then you don't have a plan. Then you 3-bet without a plan, and I think you should never do that, and that's why there's no point in thinking when you get shoved on. And Hollywooding, I think it kind of makes people more dangerous too if they don't care about showing you that they're bluffing.
Right.
Like people that show an ace on the button when they raise your blinds, it's like whatever. But if somebody shows a deuce, then it's more like, well, okay, so he's not afraid to show it. That makes somebody way more liable, because if some guy 4-bets me and I go all in and he insta-folds, then he's not afraid to show me that he can make moves, and it makes him even more dangerous because he's confident in what he's doing.
Right.
So.
Well, notably, the ultimate non-Hollywooder is Phil Ivey, because he'll make a raise or play, and then if someone else does come back, he'll just take his cards and just drops them before they're even finished counting out the chips.
Exactly. It's
he
also
doesn't
it's
even bother.
confidence too.
Yeah, he's like, fine.
Yeah.
We'll see if next time it'll be different.
And speaking of planning, the hand that came up with Doyle, this is in the second episode that you appeared in, the final episode of the season.
Yeah.
That was a hand, and this was notable because they interviewed you about the hand, and Gabe Kaplan made a point of saying that your interview was, first of all, your interview was cool because you had a plan, and you had a plan for every street in the hand. And Gabe Kaplan mentioned that you did not have a revisionist history when you went over the hand. You know, a lot of people will self-justify or come up with a plan after they knew what the other guy had.
It sounded credible.
But he believed you, yeah.
Hand where you had a deuce 9,
Yeah.
you'd straddled and you'd re-raise with the hand pre-flop.
Yeah, the thing
You're
about
making a huge call with only a pair of deuces against a big bet on the river.
yeah,
Against Doyle Brunson.
yeah. The thing is, like, normally I wouldn't really call Doyle off light because he doesn't bluff all that much. But what they didn't show is I sat down at the table and I asked for the limits to go up, or if there was any people that wanted to play higher. So
Which everyone did.
yeah, they agreed, and then Doyle took a straddle back. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, we're playing higher now. I'm like, it's 400 more. Why don't you straddle? And he said something. I'm like, wow, I thought you were a gambler. And that kind of, he was like, what? And then Eli was, oh. And then
Eli likes to needle Doyle.
yeah,
a lot
so
in those
I
situations.
mean, it came off kind of harsh, and I don't mean to burn him or anything, you know, because I
He's a
respect him.
75-year-old man.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he doesn't. I mean, what the hell, like?
So they didn't
no.
show that on TV
So-
because that's fantastic context. I'm surprised they didn't
They
show
didn't
that.
show it, but and that
Oh, that's some interesting subtext.
that was an important, because I really thought that after that river bet he would say something like, who's a gambler now, something like
Right.
that, you know, or like something, show me, rub it in, I don't know, like something, because I ticked him off and I didn't mean to, because I just like to talk trash or just
Yeah.
banter, but it's
Right,
awful
but you-
fun,
It wasn't
you know?
a good- it was a good
yeah.
spirit.
You didn't mean to be disrespectful
Exactly.
to Doyle, right?
I don't mean to be disrespectful to anyone, but
But he'd been
Yeah.
losing. You know, they kept making a big deal out about the fact that 16 televised cash games in a row he'd won.
yeah.
And now he had no way of winning because he was already in a big hole and there was only a couple more rounds to go.
Yeah.
So he's probably already semi-tilted to the extent that he can be tilted. Now he's going to go totally
Yeah.
on tilt. But he's already upset. And maybe that is just like an extra needle that
It's just like,
changed his game.
if you look at all the hands he plays, I mean, he plays so much different now than in his books and stuff like that. I mean, he pot controls all his overpairs. He checks turns behind with kings. The queen's end against Daniel and Benjamin shows the different style he plays now. It just doesn't make sense for him to fire pot. That was pretty much, and especially when the board texture changes from high card to low card. Like, it's a jack on the turn and a 4 on the river, and he tries to rep 2 different hand ranges on turn and river. So, and that with the 2 big bets, it just didn't make sense to me.
And also, you would not demonstrated yourself to be a big caller in that game. There's certain players there who've shown a willingness to call, trying to catch bluffs, and you weren't really one of them. So for him to try to make this big bet for value didn't really make sense, just in the way that you'd been playing.
And did you call very quickly?
I think the TV time that I called was the actual time I thought about it. So it was a pretty good depiction of the time frame.
And that was a hand where you, as you described it, you had a plan. You know, you said that once you called the first bet, you basically were calling all the rest.
Yeah, because...
Well, he didn't. I mean, once Lex checks behind, he was committed to calling the rest of the bets.
Right.
The key.
Well, the thing is that against another player, I wouldn't so quickly call that river, because Doyle doesn't bluff with a better hand. That was really important for me, is that if Doyle would have rivered a
Right.
pair of 4s or even a
Right.
pair of 3s, he would have given up 6s. He's not going to value bet a better pair pretty much, so it's
Right.
a straight or
Not with a
nothing.
big bet like that.
Yeah, it's a straight or nothing, and then with the little history that we had, I thought it was nothing more.
That is the ultimate. I don't know. I talk about this a lot, and it happens probably more in limit hold'em than no limit hold'em. But the worst is, of course, you actually call someone who thinks they're bluffing, and you still can't beat their hand.
Right.
Which happens. You know,
No.
sometimes the other guy's bluffing, and you call with a ace high or a king high or a small pair, and they're bluffing, but they have a
Yeah.
slightly better hand, which is the worst.
Right, because you were right and you don't get the money.
Yeah, that's why I usually end up shoving last couple months whenever I'm in a spot like that. I don't think about call or fold, but I usually just shove
Hmm.
because then I get all those hands out too.
Lex, it's been great to have you. We've talked about all this stuff. The World Series is going to start soon. One thing that people forget is that in the high roller event last year, the 40K event, you were at the final table with a lot of chips. You got it all in pre-flop when you still had chips, not when you were a little nub, but with ace king against ace jack,
Yeah,
and that crippled you, and you ended up finishing
7th.
7th. So you really could have
Won that.
won that or made a big splash in that. But the way you've been playing and the success you've had could be a big World Series and really get people to know you even more. To
Thanks,
start
yeah,
last
I really
year.
hope so.
It'll be fun to watch. You have a fun style to watch.
Thanks.
For coming on.
Thanks, Lex.
Thanks for
Thanks
joining
for
us on The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. Write us at The Scoop, cardplayer.com.